He once swore he'd be faithful for life. 10 days later, he was back in his ex's bed. Natalie Carter was never the type of woman who believed in fairy tales. She didn't believe in gut feelings, didn't think the universe sent signs, and definitely didn't buy into the idea that love alone could fix everything. She believed in reality. Two people trying their best together, splitting the dinner bill, arguing over work schedules, and still managing to send each other a go-to-bed-early text, even on the most exhausting days. That's how she and Adam had lived for the past 6 years. She was 29, a freelance interior designer in Portland. It's a shaky job for anyone without patience, but for someone who sees space and emotion as one seamless whole, it's a goldmine. Natalie had a sharp eye, lived simply, and had a knack for picking the exact rug or wall color that could completely transform a room. She wasn't much of a talker, but when she spoke, every word carried weight. Adam Bennett, 31, a fitness instructor, was the only man who'd ever made her want to live with someone longer than a lease term. He was tall, sun-kissed, and had a habit of waking up early to make protein smoothies no one else could stomach. They met at a charity run along the Willamette River. Adam came in second. Natalie came in dead last. She was sitting on the grass, gasping for air, when he handed her a water bottle and said, "No one remembers who finishes first, but everyone remembers the ones who don't quit." 6 years later, they were still together. It wasn't always smooth. There was a stretch when Natalie was tied up with a project in San Francisco for 3 straight months. There was a time Adam almost moved to Texas to open his own training center. But in the end, they both chose to stay in Portland, chose to come back to the 3rd-floor apartment with the balcony overlooking the maple-lined street. The wedding happened on a May afternoon. They picked a small farm on the outskirts of town, with blooming lavender fields, a restored old cabin for guests, and a wide lawn big enough to pitch a tent if it rained. 60 people were invited, close friends, family, and a few co-workers who'd been there since the beginning. No live band, no red carpet. But everyone smiled. Everyone wished them well. Natalie wore a simple white dress, not flashy, but perfect for her figure. Adam wore a charcoal gray suit and pinned the boutonniere on himself. During the vows, he held her hand tight and said, "I know I'm not perfect, but there's one thing I can promise. I'll never do anything that makes you doubt this love." She didn't answer right away. She looked at him. Then she nodded. They chose Seattle for their honeymoon. Not too far, just enough to shake off the usual routine. They booked an Airbnb in Capitol Hill with a balcony overlooking the lively streets. Mornings were for walking to breakfast, afternoons for visiting the Contemporary Art Museum, and nights for lying in bed watching old movies, windows open to the sounds of traffic below. Adam was like a kid again. He couldn't stop smiling, kept saying, "I can't believe we're actually married." Natalie didn't say much, but something shifted. She started thinking about the future in more concrete ways. She wanted a house with a reading room, a dog, and her own studio instead of doing freelance work. For the first time in years, she felt grounded. One evening, they walked past a small bookstore on Pike Street. It was the same one they'd visited on their very first trip together. Back then, Adam had joked that if they ever got married, they had to come back and take a photo there. Natalie didn't bring it up, but when he raised his phone, she smiled. That photo became the wallpaper on Natalie's laptop. In it, she's leaning on Adam's shoulder, and Adam's looking at her like the whole city of Seattle had faded away. 9 days after they got back to Portland, they had dinner at home. Natalie made Adam's favorite, lasagna. They ate while listening to their go-to playlist. The lights were soft, the vibe was calm. Natalie was clearing the table when Adam wiped his hands and came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her. "I love you," he said. She turned around, rested her head on his chest. There was no reason to doubt it. That was day 9 after the wedding. Everything seemed normal, and that was exactly what felt off. Natalie had always trusted her intuition. Not vague gut feelings, but a sharp eye for details. A hesitant glance, a word that felt weightless, or a silence that lingered just a second too long. But in the days after the wedding, Adam hadn't slipped once. He still kissed her goodbye in the morning, still sent short but warm texts during breaks, still asked, "Did you eat yet?" at 7 p.m. like always. Which is exactly why, when Adam suddenly said Madison had texted him and he needed to meet her to close the past, Natalie didn't question it. He said it on a Thursday night while they were watching a home design show on TV. Adam was holding his phone, staring at the screen for a long time before turning to her. "There's something I think I should tell you." Natalie muted the TV and set the remote down. "Madison just messaged me. She says she needs to see me one last time to put everything to rest." She didn't respond right away. That name came back like a small scratch in her memory. Madison, Adam's college ex. Blonde, blue-eyed, smart, hot-tempered. She'd driven Adam halfway insane for 3 years. They broke up when Madison left to study in Europe. No goodbye, just a long, logical email. It took Adam 6 months to get over her. Natalie knew that. She also knew Adam hadn't spoken to Madison in years. She took a breath. "And you're planning to meet her?" Adam nodded. "I think, if I don't, she won't let go. She's the kind of person who needs to hear it straight from me, that it's over." Natalie looked him in the eye. No blame, just weighing it. She wasn't the type to interrogate, and she believed that if someone's going to betray you, they will, no matter how tightly you try to hold on. "I'm not stopping you," she said. "I just hope you know what matters more." Adam nodded. He took her hand and said, "I know, I don't have feelings for her anymore, but I need to end it clean. Just once and for all." Natalie gave a faint smile. She still believed him. Because if trust wasn't there, what was left in a marriage that had just begun? The next day, day 10 after the wedding, Adam left the house at 6 p.m. He dressed simply, didn't wear cologne, didn't take the car, just called an Uber. Natalie cooked alone. She made a salad, toasted garlic bread, and ate in silence. In her mind, everything was still okay. This was just a loose end from the past being tied up. She didn't let her thoughts wander too far. By 8 p.m., she sent a message. "Everything okay?" No reply. 9 p.m., still nothing. Close to 11, her phone buzzed. "Had a bit too much to drink. We talked more than I expected. I'm at Matt's now. Don't feel safe driving. I'll crash here, head back in the morning." She stared at the message for a while. Matt was Adam's gym buddy. They were close, had gone out drinking plenty of times. Adam staying there wasn't unusual, but something felt off. Not anything you could point to, just that vague sense you get when a light in a room you know was off suddenly flickers on. She texted back, "Okay, sleep well," then turned off her phone. She didn't sleep that night. Not out of fear, but because her mind automatically started replaying the past 6 years. Every gesture, every reaction, every silence between them got pulled back up and examined. But the more she thought, the less she found anything wrong. The next morning, Natalie got up early, made a glass of lemon water, then headed out for her usual walk. Portland was its usual gray, slightly chilly self. She put on her headphones, turned on an instrumental playlist, and walked through familiar streets, trying to keep her breathing steady. No calls from Adam, no new messages. Around 9 a.m. when she got back, the door was already open. Adam was in the kitchen slicing fruit. He wore a gray t-shirt, his hair was a little messy, his eyes a bit tired. "Morning," he said like everything was just normal. "Sleep okay?" she asked. "Sort of. Matt's couch is way too stiff." He laughed. Natalie didn't respond. She walked straight to the bedroom, changed clothes, then came back to the dining table. She didn't ask anything else. If he wanted to talk, he would. If he didn't, pushing him wouldn't do anything but create a small crack, one that would only grow with time. The rest of the morning, they went about their day like usual, grocery shopping together, cooking lunch. Adam talked about the meetup, but only in vague terms. "We're adults now, Nat. Everyone needs to close the past to move forward." She nodded, even though deep inside a small piece had already started to break off from the solid trust she once had. That night, Natalie opened the closet and pulled out their wedding album. They'd just had the photos developed. She flipped through the pages and stopped at the one where Adam was kissing her forehead. He looked happy. But now, looking again, there was something in his eyes. Something that didn't quite match what she used to believe. She didn't cry. She just closed the album, set it on the shelf, and sat still. One thought passed through her mind. If something is real, you don't need to close the past with a night away. For those of you still listening, what do you think? Did Adam really crash at Matt's place? Or was he with the ex? Drop your guess in the comments. Let's see who's still got that innocent mindset. The unease didn't hit all at once. It seeped in, slow, like cold water leaking through a crack. Same old routines. Adam kissed Natalie's forehead every morning, texted her during his breaks, ate dinner, and watched movies with her every night. But everything started to feel more like a performance than real life. Natalie didn't say anything. She didn't check his phone, didn't bring up Madison, didn't revisit that night he didn't come home. But she watched quietly. And what she saw was nothing had changed. And that, more than anything, set off her alarms. Almost 2 weeks later, on a Saturday afternoon, she was mixing paint for a new interior design project when her phone rang. The caller was Zoe, her best friend from college, now living in Eugene, about a 2-hour drive from Portland. They still kept in touch, mostly through texts. Rarely did Zoe call. Natalie wiped her hands and picked up. "Nat, you probably don't want to hear this, but I think you should know." The kind of sentence that hits like a hard brake on a straight road. Zoe told her that earlier that morning, she'd gone out for breakfast with a friend at a downtown hotel in Eugene. As they were leaving the restaurant, she saw Adam step out of the elevator with a blonde woman. Both were in workout clothes, looking close. The woman? Madison. And the timing? The same weekend Adam had told Natalie he was crashing at Matt's. Natalie felt a chill run through her when Zoe added, "I remember it so clearly because it was exactly 10 days after your wedding." Natalie didn't move. Her hand was still holding the paintbrush. Cream-colored liquid dripped down her fingers, but she didn't notice. She just asked, "Are you sure it was Adam?" "I know your husband's face. There's no way I'm wrong." Zoe's voice softened. "I'm sorry, Nat." She didn't answer. Didn't hang up right away either. She stood in her workspace for a few more minutes, listening to the steady beat of her own heart. Then she set the brush down, washed her hands slowly, and walked out to the living room. Adam was stretched out on the couch, watching a replay of an old soccer match. He turned when he saw her walk in. "Something wrong? Did you go to Eugene last weekend?" He froze for a second, then nodded. "Yeah, Matt's cousin lives there. We went down to play some pickup games and stayed over." Natalie nodded slightly. She stepped closer and sat on the chair across from him. No anger, no accusation, just a calm, clear look. "Zoe saw you leave a hotel with Madison the next morning." Adam squinted, not like he didn't hear, like he was choosing his next move, choosing his words. And then finally he exhaled. "I'm sorry." Just 2 words, no excuses, no explanations. Natalie leaned back slightly. She wasn't surprised, she wasn't angry, but something inside her had caved in. "How long?" she asked. It wasn't some long thing." He swallowed hard. I needed to be sure about where my feelings really were." She raised an eyebrow. "And you thought your heart might be in Eugene?" Adam lowered his head. It took him a moment to speak again. "I didn't think it would go that far. I just wanted to close that chapter the right way. But seeing her again, it all got blurry." Natalie finished for him. "The past was never closed. You were just waiting for the right moment to open it back up." She didn't scream. Didn't cry. Didn't shout, "Why?" Those reactions belong to people who don't yet see the truth in the one standing across from them. What she had left now was cold clarity. Adam stood up. "I think we should take some time apart. I need space to figure things out." A familiar line from a million unraveling relationships. But coming from someone who had just betrayed her, it sounded like a trap of logic. "I messed up, but I'm still the one who needs peace." Natalie didn't respond. She got up and walked to the bedroom, opened a drawer, slid off her wedding ring. She didn't throw it, didn't slam it down, just placed it in a small box and clicked the lid shut. Then she stood in front of the mirror, undid her hair tie, and looked at herself for a few quiet seconds. The woman in the mirror didn't look heartbroken. There was only a sharpness to her now, like someone had erased a soft outline, and the cut beneath had finally come into focus. Adam moved out the next day. He didn't take much, just a backpack, a few changes of clothes, and a toothbrush. He didn't look back. Natalie didn't walk him to the door. The apartment settled back into silence. Natalie tidied a few things, wiped down the dining table, then sat to finish a quote for a new client. Her hand trembled slightly as she typed, but her eyes stayed steady. The wedding album still sat on the shelf, untouched. And inside her, something had closed, not with a slammed door, but with a question she no longer needed answered. "You were searching your heart, In a hotel room? Hold up, let's just stop right there. Give me 3 seconds. I just want to say it. Men like Adam? Trash. Fake, two-faced, making vows and breaking them in under 2 weeks. But don't worry, people like that? Karma doesn't take long. Let's see how fast it catches up with him. Madison picked him up down the street. A red convertible waited, its engine running. She wore a fitted black dress, sunglasses, and gave a soft smile when he opened the door and got in. They drove off like it was all starting over. Fresh, easy, weightless. Her apartment was a small studio downtown, tastefully decorated. She used to study fashion design, dropped out when she left to study abroad. Now she worked at a high-end boutique, but most of her time went into posting pictures, attending PR events, and maintaining her image. The first week living with Madison felt like a second honeymoon for Adam. They slept in late, had breakfast together in the sunlight streaming through the window, hit the gym as a pair, and posted bright, smiling selfies to their stories. She called him a babe, and he tried to believe he was living a newer, better life. Madison's Instagram followers quickly noticed the new guy in her photos, and the comments started rolling in. So hot together, power couple energy. But only a few days in, something started to crack. Madison asked, "Why did I see you liked a photo from some girl named Sarah today?" "Sarah? She's a friend from high school," Adam replied. "Just a friend." Madison didn't say anything in the moment, but the next night, when Adam was texting another friend, she leaned over, took his phone, and said, "If you're serious about this relationship, I think you should delete all the old girl contacts. We don't need any past drama creeping in." He hesitated, but then he did it, partly to avoid a fight, partly because he didn't want to lose Madison, at least not yet. Then came the issue of hanging out. "I need a few solo gym sessions with Matt," Adam said. "No," Madison replied. "You go with me. I don't like my boyfriend having a schedule that's separate. If you want freedom, you can be single." From that point on, every time Adam left the apartment, Madison insisted on FaceTiming just to confirm his location. Sometimes during a workout, sometimes while he was out shopping, sometimes in the middle of an online meeting, she'd call. And if he didn't pick up within 3 minutes, the storm came down hard, like a summer thunderstorm with no warning. Adam started to feel suffocated, but he said nothing. He kept telling himself, "She just needs time. Things will settle down eventually." Then one night, Madison said she was meeting up with an old friend, someone named Troy. "Just a high school classmate," she said. "Don't overthink it." Adam nodded, forcing down the lump in his throat. She left at 8 p.m. and didn't come back until almost 2 in the morning. She was wearing a different jacket than when she left. Her lipstick had changed too. When Adam asked, "Where have you been?" Madison just gave a dry smile. Troy wanted to talk longer. "It's no big deal." Adam sat up, eyes scanning her from head to toe. She didn't look away. In fact, her stare was sharp, almost daring him to challenge her. "You know what's funny?" Madison said as she stepped into the bathroom, removing her earrings. "You're asking me that, like you didn't spend the night with your ex 10 days after your wedding." That sentence, like a blade turning back on Adam's chest. Not because she was wrong, but because in that moment, he finally saw it. She hadn't changed. Not even a little. She didn't grow. She didn't evolve. She just got better at sounding reasonable while still living by impulse. Manipulative, controlling, and ruthless. After that night, Adam started waking up with a dull headache every morning, even without touching a drop of alcohol. Coffee didn't taste right anymore. The gym felt heavier than usual. And every time Madison called out, "Hey babe," in public, all he wanted to do was turn around and walk away. But the worst part wasn't Madison. It was the thing eating at him quietly every night. Awareness. He used to believe he was torn between two choices. That leaving Natalie wasn't selfish. It was being honest about his feelings. But now he saw it for what it really was. An excuse. A dressed-up lie he told himself to feel clean. And Madison? She wasn't the better option. She was the reality, the raw, unfiltered proof that he hadn't chosen love. He'd chosen the fall, and he built the cliff with his own hands. He stopped texting his friends, stopped posting, stopped laughing. Mornings with Madison had turned into her scrolling through her phone while he stared at a blank wall. And in that white space, he saw it clearer than ever. The emptiness of someone who had pushed himself out of the one place that once felt like home. One evening, standing alone on the balcony of the apartment, Adam thought about Natalie. Not as the ex, not as the one who got left, but as a clear, unshakable image, the woman who believed in him, loved him, and walked away without begging, without breaking, without ever looking back. And for the first time in his life, Adam admitted something he'd never let himself say before. I was the one who betrayed, and now I've become the one betrayed. Adam's awakening didn't come with a crash. It came quietly, through mornings without a greeting, meals that sat in silence like dead water, and the sound of Madison's laughter, but never directed at him. The closer he was to her, the clearer it became what it meant to choose the wrong person. But what kept Adam up night after night wasn't Madison. It was Natalie, and that final silence of hers, the cleanest, sharpest cut of all. And then, one day, she appeared again, not in person, but in a photo, casually, almost accidentally, on someone's Instagram. Natalie was standing in the middle of a large auditorium in Austin, Texas, wearing a beige blazer, hair neatly tied up, holding a mic, smiling gently as she gave a presentation. The photo was taken at a slight angle, with just the right lighting to catch the confidence in her eyes. A kind of presence Adam once thought she never showed in public. Next to her stood Caleb. The name hit Adam like a punch he didn't see coming. Caleb had been one of Natalie's former colleagues. They worked together on a residential branding project 3 years ago. Adam had met him once at a launch party. Tall, well-spoken, polished, and unmistakably interested in Natalie. It was written all over his face. Back then, Natalie had said, "Caleb's a good guy, but I don't feel anything." And she had chosen Adam. Now, looking at the photo of the two of them on stage, Caleb holding a laptop, Natalie mid-sentence, their eyes meeting for just a moment, something inside Adam sank. After the conference, Natalie didn't return to Portland right away. She stayed in Austin a few more days to visit the design studio where Caleb now worked as creative director. They'd exchanged emails a few weeks back, but this meeting hadn't been scheduled. It just happened. "I'm not surprised to see you here," Caleb said, setting down his coffee on the glass table in the 9th floor conference room. "Because I always knew you'd get here," he added. Natalie didn't say anything. She just looked at him for a few seconds, then smiled. She didn't mention Adam, didn't bring up the past. But when Caleb asked, "How have you been lately?" she answered with a simple line, "I'm finding my way back to myself." They had dinner at an Italian-style restaurant in downtown Austin. Not quite a date, but not entirely casual either. Caleb spoke with his usual calm and sharpness, but his eyes couldn't hide the warmth. Natalie kept it steady. She didn't lean in, but she didn't pull away. She realized she was no longer the woman she'd been a year ago, the one who had chosen Adam with full trust, believing that a vow was enough to anchor a man's loyalty. Now, she didn't need promises. She watched more closely, listened more carefully, and let time be the one to answer. During that week of the conference, Natalie took part in 3 panel discussions, 2 networking sessions, and 1 short interview for a design magazine. She wasn't trying to impress anyone. She was just herself. And somehow that made her stand out more than anyone else. Adam started seeing her name pop up more online, not in the way Madison posted, smiling selfies and curated snapshots, but in event photos, professional coverage shared by industry pages. One day, he came across a short YouTube clip, Natalie speaking about living spaces and emotional autonomy, her voice calm, clear, and full of quiet power. And Caleb was always there, not overly close, not performative, but in every image, every angle, he was in the frame, a steady presence right beside her. Adam started watching Natalie's stories every day, even though she no longer followed him back. In a short behind-the-scenes video, Natalie was standing with a group of young interns, holding a design sketch, explaining something with ease. Caleb walked by, gently placed a hand on her shoulder as a quiet hello. She turned, smiled. Their eyes met, just for a beat. Adam watched that clip 6 times, not out of jealousy, but because he finally understood. Natalie was no longer the woman he had once walked away from. She had moved past the pain, not by pretending to be strong, but by living honestly, day by day, in her own rhythm. And if once she had chosen Adam over Caleb, now she didn't need to choose anyone at all. Whoever stayed by her side now would have to be strong enough to never make her doubt again. The last story Adam ever saw of Natalie was a quiet one. She was sitting in a sunlit studio, sketching. No glance at the camera, no smile, no pose, just working, fully focused. But to him, it was the moment that tightened something in his chest. That was the day Adam decided to go find her. Natalie's studio was on the third floor of a renovated brick building in an old industrial area by the river. No flashy signage, no front desk, just a frosted glass door with a small nameplate hanging in the corner. Carter's Studio. Adam stood outside the door for a long time. In his hand was a box of pastries she used to love, and a handwritten letter he'd rewritten and crossed out more than 3 times. He wasn't sure if Natalie even remembered the pastries. Wasn't sure if she'd opened the door, but eventually he knocked. 3 soft taps. The door creaked open. A studio assistant stepped out. Adam spoke quietly. "I'm here to see Natalie Carter." A few minutes passed. Then Natalie appeared. She wore a crisp white button-up, hair tied back, a pencil still tucked behind her ear. The light behind her framed her in a way that made her seem like she no longer belonged anywhere he did. "Adam," she said, not surprised but not warm either. I was hoping we could talk for a minute," he said, voice rough. Natalie gave a slight nod, then turned and led him into a small room at the back of the studio, the one she used for sketching ideas or meeting clients in private. The space was simple, bright, with a small plant on the table and a floor lamp casting soft golden light. Adam sat down and placed the pastry box on the table. Natalie didn't look at it. "I was wrong," he began. "I never should have left. Everything. Everything with Madison, it was a mistake. I know it's too late now, but I had to say it." Natalie folded her arms, leaning back in the chair. She said nothing. Adam went on. "I haven't stopped thinking about you, about the old apartment, the mornings when you played music while mixing colors, the way you'd say nothing but make everything clear with just one look. You and me. We were the right thing once, weren't we?" Natalie looked up. Her eyes met his, sharp, cutting cut like a blade pressed to skin. "When you got into bed with her," she said slowly, "did you think about me?" Adam lowered his head. There was no answer that could make that question right. His throat tightened, and then the tears came. Not loud, not dramatic, just quiet drops landing on his hands, heavy with regret. "I was stupid," he whispered. "I thought I was chasing something new, but really, I was just running from something I wasn't grown up enough to hold on to." He pulled a folded piece of paper from his jacket, the letter he had written but never found the courage to send. He didn't hand it to her. Just held it. "Madison left," he added. "After a fight about you. She found out I was still checking your account, still had our wedding photos saved in my email. She said, you never fully loved me, and for the first time, I didn't argue." Natalie exhaled, soft, steady. There was no pity in her eyes. No anger either, just clarity. Like someone who'd finally found the exit after wandering too long in fog. "You don't need to say any more," she said. "I get it. Everything you did came from real feelings. But the thing is," she paused, locking eyes with him. "Trust, once it breaks, can't be repaired." Adam gripped the letter tighter in his hand. Natalie stood up, walked to the door, and opened it. "I don't hate you," she said, "but I don't love you the way I used to. I'm not the kind of person who waits for someone to come back after they've already chosen to leave." She turned to look at him one last time. "I was home once, but you were the one who chose to move out." Adam walked out of the studio in silence. The sky outside was still clear, a light breeze, no rain, but inside him something had collapsed, not loudly, not violently, just beyond repair. He walked slowly down the brick-lined street, still holding the box of pastries. And the letter, in the end, was crumpled and shoved deep into his pocket. Natalie didn't look back. She returned to her workspace, shut the door, and turned on some soft music. An instrumental symphony filled the room, blending with the sound of her pencil moving across paper, steady, certain, as if nothing in the world could shake her ever again. When the studio door closed behind Adam, Natalie didn't get up. She didn't sigh. She didn't cry. She just kept working. Not because she was trying to seem strong, but because she was. No performance, no pretending, no need to prove anything to anyone. 3 days later, Natalie received an email from Caleb. Subject line, "Let's make something bold in New York?" The message was brief. The furniture company where he was creative director was opening a new branch in Manhattan. They needed someone to lead a special project, designing living spaces for contemporary artists. Caleb had recommended her name to the board. They said yes. No interview needed. Talent doesn't need retesting, he wrote. Natalie read the email at 11 p.m. under the warm yellow light of her familiar drawing desk. Outside, rain fell over Portland, light, steady, quiet, like an old sorrow that had finally gone to sleep. It took her exactly 5 minutes to decide. The next morning, she sent her confirmation, then started packing. No big announcement, no farewell to the city, post. No thanks for the memories. She quietly took her artwork down from the walls, cleared her desk, and closed each drawer, one chapter at a time. 1 week later, Natalie stepped out of her apartment for the last time. Her suitcase rolled behind her, its wheels making that familiar sound against the tiled sidewalk. In her hand was a plane ticket to New York. Flight time, 10:25 a.m. She didn't look back. She didn't need to. On the way to the airport, her phone buzzed. A message from Adam. "If you ever need me, I'm still here." She read it, paused for a moment, then locked the screen. She didn't reply, not because she wanted to hurt him, but because it was time everyone learned to live with the choices they made, whether they hurt, whether they haunt, or whether they can never be undone. At JFK Airport, Caleb was waiting for her in the arrivals hall. No tight hug, no big words. He just took the suitcase from her hand and smiled. "Welcome to the next chapter of your life," he said. She smiled back, and for the first time in months, it was a smile without any pain hiding behind it. The days that followed passed like wind slipping under an old rooftop. The new job was demanding, but full of energy. The city, loud, fast, unpredictable, felt wide open. Natalie began to find her rhythm again. Step by step, she was coming back to herself. She didn't delete old photos, didn't block Adam, didn't try to erase every trace of the past, but she didn't look back either, because she knew strength isn't about wiping everything clean. It's about moving forward without letting the past hold you down. One evening, in her new apartment in Brooklyn, she stood by the window, looking out over the city. Soft yellow light filtered through the glass panes. A quiet jazz track played from a small speaker beside the bed. No one was next to her, but she didn't feel alone. She didn't need anyone to validate her worth. She didn't need forgiveness from the one who lost her. And she didn't need to rewrite the past to feel whole in the present. Natalie Carter, 30, had once loved, once trusted, once been hurt, but she was still herself, still building, still standing, not because someone held her up, but because she learned how to walk on her own. She opened her notebook and wrote a single line. "Not everyone who once loved you deserves to be loved again. And not every mistake needs forgiveness." Then she closed the notebook, turned off the light, and slept in peace. Natalie didn't need to win, didn't need to prove anything, didn't need to go back and explain who was right or wrong. She simply walked away from a love that was no longer worthy of her. And that was the victory. What makes a woman strong isn't how hard she hits back. It's how clearly she sees who no longer deserves space in her life and has the strength not to let them stay. This isn't a story about revenge. It's a story about clarity, about realizing that love, without kindness, is just a beautifully wrapped lie called emotion. What do you think? Is silence and walking away the deepest answer to betrayal? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if you've ever been a Natalie or stood on the other side, hit subscribe so you won't miss stories like this. Because one day, the next one might just be yours.